Okay, so if you're an investor, maybe an entrepreneur, or honestly anyone who just wants to get a handle on where the next big chunk of global value is coming from, we're talking maybe $40 trillion.
Mm.
You really need to tune into this. We're doing a deep dive today into some crucial research from the McKinsey Global Institute. It's called The Next Big Arenas of Competition.
That's right. And our mission here is basically to give you the shortcut, to really understand where the global economy is, while fundamentally shifting gears. And when MGI talks about arenas, it's important to know they don't just mean any fast-growing sector. It's a very specific label they're using.
Okay, let's get right into that then. What's the test? What elevates a regular industry into this special arena status?
It really boils down to two things. First, high growth. That's kind of obvious, right?
Hmm.
Capturing a big slice of the global expansion pie. But maybe more importantly, the second thing is high dynamism. And dynamism is, it's the really critical factor here.
Why dynamism? What does that mean in practice?
It means the whole competitive playing field is just constantly churning. Market shares are shifting around dramatically. Leaders get unseated. New players pop up.
Okay. So it's not just about having a big market. It's that the market is like a really intense, unstable, competitive battleground.
Precisely. Yeah, think of it like a sports league where the top teams are constantly being challenged, sometimes even replaced by newcomers who've just figured out a totally new way to play the game. That dynamism, it usually signals some kind of big underlying shift, often a major technology breakthrough or maybe a completely new business model.
Got it. And the sheer scale of this potential shift, that's the real hook here. Give us the numbers MGI is projecting for these future arenas.
Okay, so the 18 potential future arenas MGI flags,
Yeah.
they could generate somewhere between $29 trillion dollars and maybe $48 trillion dollars in revenues. That's by 2040. Yeah, and maybe an easier way to grasp the shift is their share of global GDP. MGI thinks it could jump from about 4% today up to maybe 10, even 16% over the next, couple of decades. So this isn't just tinkering around the edges. It's a really significant shift in where the world's economic gravity is pulling.
That context is absolutely vital. And I think, to understand where we might be going, we should probably look back first. Let's talk about the arenas of today. These are the 12 industries that met MGI's criteria between roughly 2005 and 2020. We know some of these names, right? Cloud services, e-commerce, EVs, biopharma.
Exactly. And these weren't just growing fast, they were like supercharged. Over that 15-year window, these arena industries, they averaged a 10% revenue compound annual growth rate, CAGR.
10% CAGR. And how did that compare to, everyone else, the non-arenas?
Well, the rest, which is obviously the vast majority of industries, they clocked in at just 4% CAGR. So year after year, these arena companies were basically growing more than twice as fast as the general market.
More than double the speed.
Yeah. And as a result, their total share of global GDP, it tripled, went from about 3% up to 9%.
That definitely covers the growth aspect. But growth is one thing, profit is another. Growth without profit is just activity. And this is where MGI's analysis really shines, I think, the capture of economic profit, which, is profit above the cost of capital, the real measure of value creation.
Oh, the concentration of profit it's pretty stunning. Okay, back in 2005, these 12 arena industries, they generated only about 9% of the total global economic profit. That's from MGI's big sample of large companies, only 9%.
Right, so 9% in 2005. And where did that end up?
By 2019, those same 12 industries accounted for almost half, 49% actually, or about $250 billion of all the economic profit captured.
Wait, hang on. Nearly half of the world's economic profit, this stuff that really decides who's winning and losing, was being captured by just these 12 types of industries by 2019. That's not just growth. That's like a massive consolidation of economic power.
Absolutely. It's intense, focused economic concentration. And it really underlines why figuring out what these arenas are and will be is such a critical strategic thing for businesses.
And MGI digs into how this happened, right? It wasn't random. Certain kinds of companies really thrived. What were the key traits of the winners in these arenas of today?
Well, first off, these arenas were incredibly fertile ground for new entrants, for the outsiders. They offered radically better chances for newcomers to break in and make a huge impact. So get this. In 2020, a full 33%, one-third of the total market capitalization in these arenas was held by companies that were basically outsiders back in 2005.
Outsiders meaning?
Meaning they either didn't exist yet or they were still private or just weren't really significant competitors at that point.
Okay. One-third of the value created by outsiders. And how did that compare to the non-arenas?
Much lower. For non-arenas, only about 15% of the market cap was held by outsiders.
Right. So that really validates the whole idea, doesn't it? If you weren't already a big player in 2005, you had like double the chance of becoming a giant if you were competing in an arena.
Exactly. And those giants that emerged, they became truly colossal. That's the second characteristic. Arenas tended to spawn massive companies. In 2020, nearly three-quarters, 74% of the total market cap in arenas was held by companies worth over $50 billion.
74% in giants. And for the others?
For non-arenas, it was only 47%. So a really big structural difference in the size of the winners.
Huge difference. And the last point MGI makes about these winners,
Yeah.
it connects to their ambition, their reach.
Yeah, they were inherently more global. Arena companies were significantly more global in their operations and revenue. On average, about 50% of their revenues came from outside their home regions.
Compared to 42% for the non-arena companies.
Right. A clear difference. And it probably speaks to the nature of many of these arena innovations, especially the digital ones. They were often platform-based, which allowed them to scale across borders much more quickly.
Okay, so MGI isn't just telling us who won in the past. They're basically giving us the recipe, the blueprint. If those were the results, high growth, dynamism, profit concentration, spawning global giants from outsiders, what are the core ingredients MGI found, the things that actually kickstart this massive transformation? Let's talk about this arena creation potion.
Right, the potion. MGI breaks it down into three essential ingredients. The first one is the trigger, the spark. It's a business model or technology step change. This is some kind of major innovation that fundamentally shifts the competitive S-curve, something that really wasn't possible or practical before.
And looking back at the last era, we saw kind of two main flavors of this, right?
Exactly. On the technology side, MGI uses examples like the big improvements in lithium-ion battery tech. That's what suddenly made producing EVs at scale actually feasible.
Okay, that's the tech step change. And the other flavor?
The business model side. Think about e-commerce or streaming video. They didn't necessarily invent a brand new thing, but they completely changed the distribution model, the commercial model, how you monetize, just fundamentally disrupted how people bought stuff or watched movies.
Right, so that step change cracks the door open. But that alone doesn't guarantee dynamism. What's the second ingredient, the one that fuels the fire?
That's the escalatory incentives for investments, which is maybe a fancy way of saying a strategic arms race.
An arms race. I like that. Explain that a bit more.
It means companies aren't just investing to, say, produce more units cheaper. They're investing to fundamentally improve the core product or the capability. Think heavy R&D, building really sophisticated digital platforms, advanced marketing to shape demand. And this creates a really powerful positive feedback dynamic.
Okay, so the investment makes the product better.
Right. Maybe faster, smarter, more features.
Which attracts more users or allows higher prices, generating more cash.
Exactly. Which then funds the next round of even bigger investments in improvement. And your competitors see this and they have to respond. They're forced into this cycle. You invest to scale your capabilities, and you scale your capabilities to justify the next investment.
So it accelerates the market share, shifts the dynamism because everyone's racing to build better mousetraps, not just cheaper ones.
Precisely. It's competition focused on capability building, which tends to shake things up much more than just fighting over incremental cost saving.
Okay, that makes sense. But you need space for this arms race to happen. Which brings us, I guess, to the third ingredient MGI identifies.
Yes, you need a big enough playing field, a large or growing addressable market. You need enough potential demand, enough runway for that competitive escalation to really take off and sustain itself.
And companies found this big market in a couple of ways.
Yeah, two main paths MGI saw. Some arenas emerged in markets that were already pretty sizable, but where demand was clearly accelerating. Think semiconductors or biopharma in the last round.
Okay, tapping into existing growing demand.
Or the second path, which was often even more explosive, was displacing huge chunks of existing large markets with a clearly superior disruptive product or service.
Like cloud services eating into traditional enterprise IT budgets.
Right.
Or EVs starting to displace internal combustion engine cars.
Exactly, those kinds of examples. And those disruptors, unsurprisingly, tended to show even faster growth rates. MGI clocked them at like 13 to 33% ADGR, just massive growth.
And the common thread, the enabling factor for so many of those arenas of today, you mentioned it earlier, it was digitization.
Absolutely. That whole massive wave of digitization over the last 15, 20 years was the fertile soil. It enabled global platforms. It allowed for scaled distribution, network effects. It explains why so many of the recent arenas are rooted in the digital economy.
Which sets us up perfectly for the next chapter. MGI took this recipe, the step change, the investment arms raise, the big market, and applied it looking forward.
Mm.
And they've identified 18 potential arenas of tomorrow. This is really the core list for anyone thinking of the future. How do they categorize these?
They group them into three main buckets based on their connection to the past. First, you've got 4 continuing arenas. These are basically the incumbents from today's list that are still showing such high dynamism and have such huge growth prospects ahead that MGI thinks they'll keep their arena status.
And those 4 are?
Specifically, they name e-commerce, electric vehicles, EVs, cloud services, and semiconductors, still very much in the thick of it.
Okay, 4 continuing. Then what's the next category?
The next group is spin-off arenas. These are segments that kind of grew out of existing arenas but have become so large, so specialized, and so dynamic in their own right that they now qualify as distinct arenas.
Interesting, like specializing within a big field.
Exactly.
Hmm.
MGI highlights 3 major ones here. First, AI software and services, which is obviously spinning out of a broader software category. Second, digital ads becoming distinct from just general consumer internet platforms. And third, streaming, splitting off from the wider video and audio entertainment landscape.
And the scale here is huge too, right? I saw a number for AI software.
Oh yeah. For AI software and services alone, the forecast is potentially $1.5 trillion to maybe $4.6 trillion in revenue by 2040. Just massive.
Yeah. Okay, that's huge. But maybe the most exciting category for looking at totally new frontiers is the third one, the greenfield opportunities.
Right. These are the 11 emergent arenas. These are the categories that are, relatively speaking, purely new contenders taking the stage. This is where you see some potentially massive strategic shifts happening across industries.
Give us some examples. What stands out from this emergent list?
Well, one that gets a lot of attention, and MGI specifically calls it out, is drugs for obesity and related conditions. They point to the breakthroughs with GLP-1 drugs as a major catalyst here. A potential growth is just explosive. MGI projects a possible TGR of 25 to 35%. That's driven by a genuine therapeutic breakthrough meeting a massive unmet need.
25 to 35% CEGR.
Yeah.
That's incredible. What other kinds of new frontiers made the list? Especially maybe things moving beyond pure digital.
Definitely seeing more physical world impact here. There's the future of how things move, future air mobility that includes things like delivery drones and eVTOLs, the electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, and also space, but focused specifically on commercial space infrastructure and services.
Okay, movement in space.
Right.
What about energy and industry?
Yes, key components related to the energy transition are on the list. Batteries, obviously crucial, and also highly specialized security needs like cybersecurity, which just keeps growing in importance. MGI also includes some big industrial transformation categories like modular construction and advanced robotics, so a real mix of digital enablement and physical world change.
It's really important, though, and MGI is clear about this, that this arena status isn't permanent, right? The competitive environment evolves. Some of today's arenas might graduate or fall off the list.
Exactly right. They actually project that 5 of the current 12 arenas, and they mention biopharmaceuticals and payments as examples, will likely exit the arena list. It's not that they become unimportant industries, but MGI projects, they probably won't sustain both the very high growth and the high dynamism required. Their market structures might start to stabilize, the competitive intensity might cool down a bit.
So that arena status, it's like a temporary crown you wear during that peak phase of competitive escalation and transformation.
Perfectly put. Once the dust settles, the winners are more established, the market dynamics mature, then that intense dynamism fades, even if growth continues for a while.
Okay, so wrapping this all together, what's the big takeaway for you, the listener? Whether you're, an entrepreneur looking for funding, maybe an investor placing bets, or even someone just thinking about your next career move,
Yeah.
it seems clear these 18 potential arenas are where a huge amount of future value creation is going to be intensely focused.
That's the core message. But MGI is also careful to point out that while their modeling is robust, the actual trajectory of these 18 arenas isn't set in stone. It's going to be significantly influenced by 3 major external uncertainties, big swing factors.
Right. The things we all need to keep a close eye on. What are they?
Okay, first is geopolitics. How will regulations evolve? Will we see more technological regionalization, splitting standards or markets? That could massively impact where and how companies in these arenas can compete.
Okay, geopolitics is number one.
Second, the speed of advances and adoption of AI technology. This cuts across almost everything. How quickly does generative AI and other forms of AI really get embedded? It could dramatically accelerate some arenas or potentially disrupt others in unexpected ways.
AI adoption makes sense. And the third one.
The third is the pace of the green transition. How quickly do we move towards decarbonization? This directly fuels the demand and the investment pouring into key arenas like batteries, maybe EVs, sustainable materials, and related clean energy markets.
So geopolitics, AI speed, and the green transition pace. Those are the big external variables shaping this $40 trillion opportunity set.
And it's worth reflecting, if the arenas of today fundamentally shaped the digital economy, how we connect, how we consume information, these 18 arenas of tomorrow look set to shape our physical world much more directly. Our health, our infrastructure, how we move, how we build things.
That implies a whole new set of challenges and responsibilities too, doesn't it?
Absolutely. These transformations go way beyond just the quarterly earnings report. They bring complexity. The EV arena might solve transportation issues, but creates new challenges around grid capacity and charging infrastructure. The GLP-1 drug arena MGI highlights. It immediately brings up huge questions around cost, access, equity. Who gets these potentially life-changing treatments?
Which I think raises the perfect final question to leave everyone mulling over, drawing directly from MGI's arena creation potion. We know you need that big technological business model step change to kick things off. So thinking beyond the 18 arenas MGI has already put on the map, what specific breakthrough, what innovation do you predict might trigger the next big wave of competitive escalation? What's the seed for the arena after these?